round 2 of the Challenge Cup and the early contenders beginning to emerge. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Yeah, so Challenge Cup, we're beginning really to see which teams are maybe, early on looking like possible, teams that are going to go deep into the tournament, and which teams also struggling as well, whether that's because this level a little bit too hard for them to compete at, or that they're just not prioritizing this competition, and therefore the teams that they're choosing, which are weakened, can't compete at this level either. But what we'll do as usual is we're going to go down through the games over the weekend, look at the results. We'll talk a little bit, very little, about each of the games, and then we'll have a look at the tables as well and see where things stand. So first game, we're going to start with the Friday game. That was Montpellier 31, Zebre Parma 7. So in this one, actually competitive in the first half. Zebre got themselves a try in that first half. Great start to the match as well for them. Lecata going over for them on 9 minutes, and that's converted by Montauban, and they're leading 7-0, but unfortunately for them, only points to score in the game. And converted try and it was actually 2 unconverted tries for Montpellier before the break, and they're leading 10-7 at the break. But then second half, Montpellier, add on 3 more tries. They nil Zebre in that second half, and in the end, a very comfortable win, 31-7. Montpellier, they're looking like a team that at this level, you put them at Champions Cup level, and they're not at say a level of a Bordeaux or Toulouse, but and they can't really compete at the moment, at least at that Champions Cup level, but put them at this level, and if they take it seriously, we're seeing what they can really do. And Zebre have been had a decent start to the season. Yes, they're not as competitive away from home as they are at home, but still, given the fact that they were in it at half time, still a very good performance from Montpellier to take it away from them in the second half and just keep pulling away, adding on to those scores, and ending up, with a 5-0 in terms of match points victory. So Montpellier 31, Zebre Parma 7 was the final score there. So we're going to have a look now at the next game. So that was Benetton Rugby 44 and Perpignan 31. So very high scoring in this game. Half time, it was close, 24-20 to Benetton, and a bit of back and forth in the game as well. You had Benetton, a really fast start. They scored 3 tries in the first 25 minutes, 2 coming up to 20 minutes from Adogwu and Isakor, and then we have response from Perpignan, Dugavalu, and then Odogwu gets his second. So Benetton just keeping that lead going, but then Paulet scores in the run up to half time for Perpignan, and just makes it close at the break. In the second half, then we have Bernasconi getting the bonus point try for Benetton, and then Mendy getting a 5th try for them, which pretty much put the seal on the victory. But then Fahy with a try back for Perpignan, but from there they couldn't produce anything else. Really, they would have been looking for another try to try and get that losing bonus point out of the game, but they weren't able to do it. And instead, you had Benetton just stretching their lead, from the boot of Umaga, with 2 penalties in the last 15 minutes, just to stretch that score out a little bit more for them. And final score, Benetton 44, Perpignan 31. I've said before, this competition seems like it's made for a club like Benetton, where it's kind of the level that would you think they can be very competitive in, at this level, and they should have the wherewithal to be able to getting deep into competition, semi-finals, finals, maybe winning it as well. And I think that's where their ambition should lie, as far as this competition goes. But we'll move on now to the next game, and that was Toyota Cheetahs 22, Stade Francais 45. So Cheetahs invitational side, generally, they're, I wouldn't say they're ultra competitive at this level. They're obviously not playing regularly at the kind of level that the other teams, in this competition are, even those that are kind of struggling in the domestic leagues. But still, you'd expect a bit more fight out of them. But it's been a kind of a tough opening for them, really. Playing at home against Stade Francais, who are a team who, again, they're kind of on that cusp between, Champions Cup and Challenge Cup, and, not quite competitive in the Champions Cup, but put them down at this level, and they're very competitive. And, but half time, the Cheetahs were leading 17-14, and, and it wasn't like, they kind of raced away into a lead, and then Stade Francais just start pegging them back in the second half. Stade Francais actually started, fairly well. 2 tries in the opening quarter for them, give them a 14-0 lead, and then Cheetahs come back. It was 14-3 because Cheetahs scored a penalty, but Cheetahs with 2 tries, Van der Westhuizen and Hartzenberg going over for them to give them that 17-14 lead at the break. But then the second half, then a bit of a blitz from Stade, where they scored 2 tries in the opening 3 minutes of the half, and now they've got the bonus point in the bag, and they're leading, decent lead in the game, and then 15 minutes to go, another try for them, and Cheetahs looking to kind of get something out of the game, and come back in that last 10 minutes. But as they're kind of pushing for that, we get a 6th try from Stade, and then finally when Cheetahs do get over, it's basically just a consolation for them through Nell with 3 minutes to go. So final score total: Cheetahs 22, Stade Francais 45. Right, on to the next game then, and it is US Montauban 22, Ospreys 33. So, Ospreys not having the best season so far in the URC, but, they seem to be doing well in this competition. And, in this one, they leading 19.8 at half time. Second half a little bit closer, but still kind of maintaining, that margin of 11 points through to the end. And, Ospreys start with a couple of tries from Moriarty and Morgan Morse in the first 15 minutes. Then Keelan Giles gets over as well. We then have, Morand for Montauban, getting their only try that first half and keep them a little bit in touch about 5 minutes before the break. Then into the second half, and it is Toucalet over for Montauban as they're trying to close the gap a bit. But then, a couple minutes after the restart, you have Daniel going over for the bonus point try for Ospreys. And then with 10 minutes to go, then Hardy gets over for them as well. And then the, Montauban game's already gone. clock in the red, but they do get over for a final score from Canica. And final score, US Montauban 22, Ospreys 33. Right, let's find the next game here. So after that then, Newcastle Red Bulls 14, Lions 10. And Lions honestly been very disappointing in this competition. Again, they come into the competition in good form. After a rocky start to the URC, they had 3 wins on the bounce coming in. And it's like they've gone back to the way they were at the start of the season. Can't buy a win. And this one, leading at half-time, and said this so many times in Champions Cup this season as well, leading at half-time, get nilled in the second half and lose the game. And, that's got to be disappointing. But, unfortunately, Lions disappoint their fans a lot, but you had Angelo Davids gets over, try in the 3rd minute, that's converted. Then Sam Francis adds a penalty as well before 20 minutes. But in between that first try and that penalty, you have Alex Hurl over for Newcastle and just kind of keeping them in touch. Halftime score 10-7 to the Lions. Then the second half, as I said, they can't produce another score, basically. And the thing to keep in mind as well is Angelo Davids went to the bin right with 10 minutes to go in that half. But then right before the break, Ollie Fletcher went to the bin as well. So they had I don't know whether it was 5 or 6 minutes or something, at least in that second half, where they were playing against 14, and they still couldn't. That really was the period there. If they had got another score in that period, they might have gone on to win the game, but they weren't able to produce it. And then once both teams were, back up to 15, it was still kind of neither team really being able to get themselves in a position to score what in the end proved to be the knockout blow and the winning score right up until the very end. And it's a couple of minutes to go and Lions hanging on a little bit, and then Murray McCallum gets over for Newcastle, and the conversion then, the try itself puts them 2 points ahead. Conversion then takes them out beyond a penalty, and Lions can't muster a response, and Newcastle win. And Newcastle, they've struggled badly in the Premiership so far, or the Prem as they call it now, so far this season. But they've been doing well in this competition, and it's going to be interesting to see now over the festive period how that affects their form in the Prem. Will they be able to chalk up a win there as well? But Newcastle Red Bulls 14, very disappointing Lions 10. Right, let's find the next one here then. So next we have, I think for me, probably Irish bias or URC bias, but probably the game of the weekend. Cardiff Rugby 29, Ulster Rugby 26. Half-time, Ulster leading 14-12, and Cardiff are the ones who produce the second half performance to get them to the win. And they had to, they had to come back as well in the last kind of 15 minutes, to come over the top of Ulster and get that win too. So, we start out with, actually Cardiff starting well, 2 tries in the first, 12 minutes, Knott and Bowen going over, and then, into the second half then, into the third quarter then, Tom Stewart, over for Ulster, and James Hume right before the break gets in, and that gives Ulster that narrow lead at the break. And then they add to that, almost immediately after half time, Werner Koch with a try, on 44 minutes. And then he gets a second then on 53 minutes. And it feels like at that stage, Ulster, they've just got, that's their bonus point. They're, cruising a little bit, and you feel like another score, and that should be the end of it. It should kind of kill the game off. But Cardiff, they hang on in there, and we have Danny Southworth with about 15 minutes to go. He gets over for a try, the third try for Cardiff, and now they're back within kind of striking distance of Ulster. Then we have James Botham for Cardiff and Harry Sheridan at the same time go to the bin, and then not long after that, like 5 minutes later, you have Ben Carson goes to the bin as well, and Dan Thomas in for a try at the same time. I didn't see what happened there, but looking at there, I'm pretty sure it's like Dan Thomas got over to score, and there was an advantage being played. Ulster probably on a warning, and then Carson goes to the bin. That's normally the way it happens. But there, Callum Sheedy's conversion then makes it 26-all. So down the stretch, the last few minutes, it's kind of next score wins at that stage, and right, on 80 minutes, Sheedy nails a penalty to give Cardiff the win. So brilliant performance from them, honestly, because it's one thing, yes, they've been going well in the Universitaire second, but it's one thing to, to hit your rhythm and, be leading and then kind of just hold the opposition off and get your win that way. But being able to come, from a fair bit back and get yourself level and have the wherewithal then to, win that penalty in the final minute of the game and convert it as well. That shows that there really is progress in this Cardiff team. Cardiff Rugby 29, Ulster Rugby 26. And yeah, just another thing on that as well. Like Ulster have been in better form than we've seen them in a long time. So it's a very good scalp, I think, for Cardiff to take in that game. Right, on to the next game here. Let me pull it up. So next then we have Connacht Rugby 52, Blackline 0. So Connacht at the Dexcom, really producing a great performance, 38-0 at half time. And start out straight away, like pretty much not even a minute on the clock, like first minute of the game, Paul Boyle over to score. Then he gets a second, before the 10-minute mark. Caelan Blade goes over a few minutes later. Boyle completes his hat-trick on 27 minutes. And then Sam Lilo in as well. We have Shane Bolton gets in just before half time. So already Connacht have 5 tries, by the break, and a healthy 38-0 lead. And then in the second half then, Caelan Blade with his second, and Shane Bolton with his second as well. And yeah, like Blackline found it, pretty hard to compete in that game. And, got a lot of pleasing things, I think, certainly for Connacht in the game. Real kind of statement win from them. Yes, against Blackline, but Connacht would have been disappointed, with how things came about, or finished in the first round. So just to get back on track would have been really good for them. But then you had Billy Bowen off the bench, making his debut in the front row, and he looks impressive. Given Ireland's scrum woes in recent times, you wonder if a prospect like him might actually get some kind of accelerated accelerated pathway, whether it's into maybe not necessarily into the full Irish team, but maybe into, you know, Ireland A or development team or something like that. But certainly a guy who looks like he has a lot of potential there, in the front row, you know, young guy, with, you know, looks like he's got very good technique and definitely, you know, really good strength, which obviously you need for a prop. But final score, Connacht Rugby 52, Black Lion 0. Okay, let's move on now. So we got the next one then is Racing 92 31, Exeter 31. It's that very rare thing that we see in rugby, and that is a draw. And, you know, Racing gonna be I'd say the happier of the two teams, given that, you know, Exeter were winning 28-12 at half time, and, you know, Racing able to come back in that second half. And, you know, it basically clock in the red as well, to get their draw. But first half, Racing actually start, pretty well. Labarbe over for a try in 8 minutes. But then, Maloney goes in for Exeter. Then you have, Kane James in for them as well. Then we have, Rabu Taumada, in for Racing, as it's kind of back and forth a little bit. And, then you got Pearson in for, Exeter. And then just before the break, Tuima in for their bonus point try, and winning 28-12 at half time, probably thinking, okay, you know, just keep the scoreboard ticking over in that second half and we should win. And, you know, it looked like that was probably going to happen for them, because we get to, like, you know, 15 minutes to go, and Racing haven't made a dent in that lead at all. But crucially, I think Exeter haven't added any more points themselves either. And so then the fight back starts. We have Basse over with 50 minutes to go. Then Exeter looking to steady the ship a little bit. So Ben Cohen pops over a penalty for them. And we then, you know, we're less than 10 minutes to go. Don Guy, over for Racing, and I believe that was just the end of a yellow card period for Tuima, and just the start of another yellow card period for Fisilau. So kind of two, you know, just about overlapping yellow card periods for Exeter. And then Exeter now, you know, Racing just 7 points back, and they're down to 14 men, but they try and hang on as much as they can. Clock goes into the red, but finally the Thras is over, and Prisciantelli converts it to make a draw. So yeah, definitely Racing going to be the more pleased of the two teams with that. Racing 92-31, Exeter Chiefs 31, the final score there. And then we're on to the final game of the round. So Dragons RFC 23, Lyon Olympique Universitaire 21. So you know, fair play to Dragons, getting themselves a win, losing at halftime as well. It was 7-6 to Lyon at the break. And, you know, Dragons, again, they had to do it late on. They had to come back late on, you know, in the first half. You know, Dragons were actually leading, you know, a couple of penalties from Angus O'Brien, and looks like maybe they're going to go into halftime with a bit of a lead. But then 10 minutes before the break, Jan Theroux over for a try for Lyon gets converted, and they have that narrow lead at the break. Then the second half, then they stretch their lead. Arthur Mathuron and Ave Malo over for tries for them. And yeah, like they've got a decent lead at that stage. You know, they're leading 21-6. And again, you're feeling like probably another score, you know, kills the game off. looking for, just need one more try for that bonus point, and that would have been where their mindset was. But then 15 minutes to go, we start to see the fight back from Dragons. First Keddy over for a try, then about 10 minutes later, Ollie Burrows over for a second one. So they're coming back now. They're back within striking distance at that stage. And then with 2 minutes left on the clock, Keddy in for a try. And that gets them level. And then Angus O'Brien gets the conversion to give them the win. So brilliant win from Dragons. It's great to see from them, honestly. I'm happy for them because, they haven't really had much to cheer about in recent seasons. So, this is a good win in front of the home fans, and hopefully gives them a bit of a boost. And we see them, get that first win in the URC. They've obviously got a couple of draws there. But yeah, you'd love to see them get a win, as long as, in a kind of a selfish way, as long as it's not against an Irish province. But Dragons 23, Lyon 21 was the final score in that one. Okay, so there are all the games from the weekend. We're now going to have a look at the pools. So starting with Pool 1, we have Montpellier at the top there. 2 wins from 2, 9 tries scored, and 10 match points for them. Ospreys, only behind them on points difference, 2 from 2 as well. 9 tries for them as well. And they're on 10 points. So, Ospreys, much better form in this competition than the URC. And again, a team that's going to hope that is going to kind of carry over into the Christmas period for them, in the URC. Connacht Rugby then third there. 1 win and 1 loss for them on 6 points. And, they'll want to kind of, put themselves in a position that if one of those 2 teams ahead of them slip up, that they can take advantage of it. Then Zebre in 4th place, one win and 1 loss on 5 match points. And then the 2 teams at the bottom then, US Montauban, and Black Line, both on 0 points. On to Pool 2 then. We got Benetton Rugby leading the way there. 2 wins from 2, 9 match points. And Newcastle Red Bull, also 2 wins from 2. Bit of a surprise package given how poor they've been in the Premiership, but on 8 match points there. Then we have Perpignan next. 1 win from 2, 1 win, 1 loss, 5 match points to them. And then Dragons after that win, for them, first win of the season. 1 win, 1 loss as well on 4 points. And, hopefully for them, they can produce another win, because they're going to have to, if they're going to qualify, you would feel, because, Lyon and Lions, one of them is going to win a game before the end. So they're going to have to pick up match points somewhere. But at the moment in 4th place, they're in position to qualify for knockout stages. So just really have to repeat their, the performance from the first 2 games in the last 2 rounds. And then we have Lyon and Lions, they're 5th and 6th, both on 1 point. On to the final pool then, Pool 3. Stade Francais leading the win. 2 wins from 2, 12 tries, and 10 match points for them. So they're the top try scorers in the game, in the competition. I think Ulster have more than them. But yeah, they're leading the way there still with maximum points. Exeter Chiefs then next. 1 win and a draw for them on 8 match points. And Ulster in 3rd. 1 win and 1 loss for 7 match points. Cardiff, great win against Ulster. 1 win, 1 loss, 5 match points. But they're still going to have to, produce something, in their last 2 games as well. Kind of in a similar position to Dragons. Good position for now, but you've got to get another win. Racing then, with that draw against Exeter and a defeat on 3 match points. And then Toyota Cheetahs there at the bottom, no match points for them so far. So, hoping that they can maybe, improve in that second half. But you know, when you look at the other teams in their pool, you're thinking, well, who exactly are they going to be able to, get a result against? And it's kind of difficult to see, honestly. But, just kind of fond memories of them being in the, what was it called? What was the name of it? The before the URC, the Pro 14. There we go. Of them being in the Pro 14, yeah. But sadly, not performing too well so far this season. But that's the standing so far. We're on a break now over the Christmas period. Obviously, for this competition, we're obviously going to have URC games that we're going to cover, and then we're back in January then, and it's going to be a real sprint and a real kind of dogfight to see who qualifies for those knockouts.